Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other, and today's episode is Charmed Season 4, Episode 6, Brain Drain. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So the episode begins with Piper preparing for a baby shower that she's hosting for her friend Wendy, who she hasn't seen or been close to in a while due to the magic interfering with their lives. There's also some growing pains for living with Paige, things like Paige not putting milk on the list when she uses up most of the milk, and other minor things, her furniture being around the house. Anyways, Piper continues to get ready for this baby shower. She gets all of the baskets and other things that she's prepared ready when Cole shimmers in and reveals that there is a chameleon demon in the house who's been gathering information and spying on them for some time. And he asks Piper to freeze the room and see what shouldn't be there. Of course, they only notice as the room unfreezes that there is a lamp that shouldn't be there, which then leads the chameleon demon to be able to escape, not before, of course, he gets his arm blown off, though it does regrow immediately, which leaves green blood all over the baby shower, gifts and everything that Piper has prepared. And that is, of course, when Becca arrives at the door to pick up Piper to take her to P3, where the baby shower is being hosted. And at first, Piper is saying that she can't go, but then Becca says, "Oh, everyone's been looking so forward to seeing you. We've all been hoping that you would be there." And so Piper ultimately decides to go despite Phoebe's warnings that they're kind of in the middle of something. And so Piper ultimately does go to the baby shower and is there briefly, getting to see Wendy and all of their other friends. And Becca, unfortunately, Leo then has to orb in when she ignores his phone call to let them know that they've gotten a lead, and then she has to leave, which upsets her because she's trying to regain a bit of a normal life. And so they return and go to where they've scryed for the chameleon demon. However, they can't find him. And once the sisters split up to search for the chameleon demon, Piper is attacked by a shapeshifted source who killed the original chameleon demon before shapeshifting into him himself. And then he kidnaps her, takes her to the underworld, where she is basically put on an altar, and the source connects directly to her mind in order to twist her around, as she's considered the most vulnerable sister to mental manipulation at this time. So in the real world, of course, Phoebe, Paige, Leo, and Cole are all trying to find Piper and save her from the source. Leo and Cole go to the underworld, and Phoebe and Paige search in the attic and the book for a solution. The majority of the episode, however, takes place in Piper's mind, and the source has turned the manor into a sanitarium where Piper is being held in the sanitarium after her grandmother's death because she believes herself to be a witch but really isn't a witch. And Paige and Phoebe are her roommates, and Prue was a former roommate who got better and left the sanitarium, and then Paige was the new roommate that came in, and it's like a game to them that they're playing in the sanitarium, though Piper's the only one who truly believes it. Leo is a doctor there, and so is the source, and everybody works all episode to convince Piper that she is not actually a witch. Piper then does eventually. Oh, and Cole's also a patient who's getting like electroshock therapy, which Phoebe interrupts because he's good now and is upset that she doesn't get to spend as much time with him as she would like to. Anyways, they escape the sanitarium, and Piper, when a car comes at her, tries to freeze it, but her powers don't work in the illusion, and so she ends up getting hit by the car and brought back in. And then the illusion Leo basically tells her, you know what, that normal life you want, we can have it if you give up your powers. If you release yourself from the powers, we could actually have the little girl you dream about, and blah, blah, blah. Get married for real. We wouldn't have to sneak around. And he then picks her up and takes her out to the garden, telling her about how there's magic in the real world too, but when like a couple of psychedelic butterflies fly by, and or rather cartoonish butterflies fly by. And ultimately, she then does decide that she's going to say the spell to give up her powers so that she can have that normal life. Of course, this is all done while everybody is trying to save her. So in the underworld, Cole and Leo have managed to make it to where the source is, and Cole kills the Oracle, who jumps in front of the source, but then starts shooting at the source's barrier with his energy balls, and then eventually does manage to wound the source, who then has to abandon Piper, which allows Leo to then heal her. Meanwhile, up in the attic, Phoebe and Paige also have figured out that the source likes to play mind games and is probably in Piper's mind, and so they cast a spell that will allow them to go into her mind. However, at first, Piper is reluctant and continues to recite the spell, which she has to say 3 times to relinquish their powers, because she doesn't believe them when they first come in. However, once Leo joins them, he's the one who's able to reach her and bring her out of it, and then they, of course, all go home. She's very happy to be home and has come to terms with being a witch and believes that she can have the normal life and maybe babies of their own, which Leo then says that they should practice for before ordering her away. And likewise, Phoebe and Cole, now that the source has been wounded, they may get a little bit of downtime, and that is why Phoebe and Cole then shimmer away to do their thing, and Paige is left as the only single sister who decides to go and get milk or something. And that's how the episode ends. So as always, we're going to rank the episode on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. And I've highlighted those which I felt applied to this episode. So first we had our single episode supporting character introductions, and we had 2 of them. That was Alastair and Becca, who are each worth 1 point. Alastair is the chameleon demon, and Becca is the friend who picks up Piper to go to the baby shower. We then have a multi-episode supporting character introduction, which is Wendy, who is in 2 episodes total throughout the series. But as it is more than 1 episode, she's worth 2 points. And it's her who has the baby shower. And in the illusion, in order to convince Piper that the real world still exists outside of the sanitarium, Wendy with her baby and Becca and friends all come to visit her, though only briefly before being kicked out by Piper having a bit of a emotional breakdown. We then have our multi-episode supporting character development, which is, of course, that the Oracle, who was introduced a few episodes ago, does die for the source in this case. She jumps between the source and one of Cole's massive energy balls that he made with 2 hands so that it was bigger than usual, and obviously bursts into flames, vanquished. Then we have our multi-season main character growth, which is ultimately Piper choosing magic in the end. Like, she, at the start of the episode in the real world, was questioning whether they continue to be witches, even suggesting that they offer the source a deal. You don't come after us, we won't go after you, hoping that maybe their destiny could have already been fulfilled by all the demons that they had vanquished to date. Additionally to that, when she was in the illusion, she almost gave up their powers, so she obviously had a point of weakness there, questioning whether she wanted to continue to be a witch, not really happy about being a witch. However, by the end of the episode, once she's freed from the illusion, she is incredibly happy to be home, all of her furniture there, no doctors or anything, and she is coming to terms again with being a witch and choosing to continue to be a witch. And also, this is the first episode where they're bringing up actively trying for a baby at the end, which also I feel is growth for Piper as well, as she's wanting the baby and now she's considering that she is going to be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? she's going to be able to have a family and continue trying to have that family that she saw in her vision of the future in Reality Bites, I believe it was. So that is all of our positive points, bringing us to 10. However, I did take 2 points for negative messaging or behavior, and that was the absolutely epic levels of gaslighting that the source put her through in this episode with the sanitarium, with the illusion, with everything. It was extreme levels of gaslighting, of making Piper believe that she was crazy, and in being crazy, convincing her to give up her powers so that she can be not crazy and leave a sanitarium. I just couldn't think of that as positive. So that brings this episode to an 8 out of 10. And now that we've figured out the value, it's now time to go over our list. So, in first, we have Charmed again, Hell Hath No Fury, Enter the Demon, A Night to Remember, Size Matters, and Brain Drain is so far in 6th place, which is last place. Though I will give a brief reminder that when more than one episode has the same score on our mostly objective ranking, it's ranked just in episode order, which is why it ended up in last, even though it is an 8 out of 10. Then we have the personal ranking. Now, personally, I do think that it feels like every few episodes there's some sort of crisis of, oh, we don't want to be witches anymore. We want to give up our powers. We want our destiny to be done, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like they just keep reworking and reusing that same plot over and over and over to the point where it starts to get a little bit like, yeah, okay, but you're not gonna not be witches because we're on the 6th episode of the season. Give us a break already. So, as much as, you know, I do enjoy seeing like that they are willing to flesh out the characters, have the characters go through emotional struggles and things like that. I feel like they could choose multiple different types of struggles and not rather than keep reusing the same one over and over. So it feels a little bit tired at this point. As for the sanitarium plot point, which is pretty much the majority of the episode, I like it because there are moments of comedy within it. However, at the same time, I also have in the past really disliked it for it taking place in her head and, having all of the stuff. Like this time when I watched it, I did feel more positively about it. I did enjoy it because of the comedic moments and I was enjoying that. However, I do know because I have rewatched this so many times, there have also been other times, like I said before, that I haven't liked it. And so I decided to just kind of make it a neutral because while I enjoyed it this time, I don't always. It really depends on what mood and mindset I'm in when I'm rewatching the episode, whether or not I will like this episode or not. And then I do enjoy that they were able to convince Piper not to give up their powers, but I did find that it was a little disappointing that her sisters made no headway and it was only Leo who was able to convince her to not give up her powers. And it's like, as the people who are directly affected, I would have liked the sisters to have been able to make more of a breakthrough with her emotionally than like before Leo arrived, and then maybe Leo just being that like final push. But they don't really. She kind of completely ignores Paige and Phoebe when they try to convince her, which I felt like, again, was disappointing because they are the ones who are most effective or directly affected by her spell that she's trying to do. And then, of course, as always, I do enjoy the couple moments. Phoebe and Cole getting to spend some time together now that the source has been injured. And then Piper and Leo starting to consider trying for a baby and practicing to try for a baby, I thought was cute. Subplot of the baby shower, I was kind of like, no, I don't really like. It's a good segue into Piper and Leo trying for a baby and to remind us of the fact that in the future, when they went to the future to try to save Phoebe from being executed, there was a little girl there, and that this would be around the time, according to Phoebe's math, when she would start trying for that little girl. So I do like that that was a good segue. Like, I understand plot purpose wise, but I honestly feel like they could have also done it without necessarily needing to spend time on the show on that and get all of those extras in there and everything. So I was kind of not really interested in that plot line. Overall, having said everything, I decided to give this episode a 4 because it's not the worst episode there's been, but it is an iffy, wishy-washy episode for me because sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Some aspects I like, some I don't. So 4 out of 10 seemed fair, bringing our list to Hell Hath No Fury, Charmed Again, A Night to Remember, Size Matters, Brain Drain, and then in 6 we have Enter the Demon. So now we come to our series ranking so far, and on our mostly objective side, we have Season 3 in first place with 76.36%, Season 2 in second with 75%, Season 1 is in third with 73.18%, and Season 4 so far has a score of 56 out of 210. On the personal ranking side, Season 3 is in first place with 76.82%. Season 1 is my second place with 71.5%. And then Season 2 so far is in last place with 56.82%. And Season 4 so far has a score of 43 out of a possible 210. So with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Charmed Season 4, Episode 6, Brain Drain. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.